Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk to you guys about selecting the right holster for your gun. A lot of times people focus on getting the right gun, but they don't think about getting the right holster for the gun. So the holster, especially for the modern striker fired gun, has to be form fitted to the gun, meaning that this holster was specifically made for this Glock 43, okay? You can't just go to Walmart and get one of these soft fabric holsters or just a generic holster. I think to understand what the holster is not just to carry the gun, right, and retain the gun. The purpose of the modern holster this is also the safety mechanism of this gun. This Glock 43 does not have any external safeties. The holster is what protects the trigger guard and prevents this gun from accidentally firing. Okay, so as long as this gun is in the holster, this gun is safe and it cannot fire. Okay, so that is the only reliable safety that you can depend on for the gun. The external safeties, right, like the thumb safeties, what I have seen over 12 years of training people is with those type of external safeties, they're usually off when you wanted them on or on when you wanted them off, which means that it doesn't actually make the gun safer, right? So if you need to use the gun, if you're depending on the gun to work and the safety is on because you forgot to take it off, then basically the gun isn't working the way it's supposed to work. So what I find with people is, especially under a stressful situation, right, like a self-defense situation, you want to think about the least number of things possible. Now, you might say, hey, with lots of training, you'll remember to take the safety on. Here's the thing. If I put enough stress on you, you will forget to do things, okay? And that's one of the things that I do when I train people. I intentionally stress them because all defensive shooting situations are under stress. Okay, so no external safeties on the gun. The gun will work better for you if it doesn't have one. Depend on the holster to be the safety mechanism for the gun. Okay, now aside from those features of basically it's got to hold the gun, it's got to basically retain the gun, it's the safety mechanism of the gun. Another important consideration is being able to get the holster on and off your body quickly. So when I put this on my belt, so first of all, I have here a gun belt. This one's made by Core Essentials. There's other ones out there. Brash Tactical also makes one. It's basically specifically made to be a gun belt. Okay, and what I'm able to do is I'm able to basically get this on quickly. Okay, quickly tighten the belt up, right, and then I'm able to draw and quickly reholster. Okay, now the reholstering part, okay, is important because in a self-defense situation where you have to use your gun to defend yourself, after you scan and assess the area, and you need, and I always recommend scan and assess, not just to see if there's additional threats, but also to break that tunnel vision, right, to kickstart your brain into thinking about what you need to do next. You need to get the gun back into the holster. So a lot of people focus on the quick draw, right, being able to come out and get on target fast, but you also need to get the gun back into the holster, pretty quickly. So that may include getting through your clothing. I got lots of layers of clothing here that I have to get through, and that has to be part of the training that you do, right? So you gotta be able to come out, fire your shots, and then basically figure out how you're going to quickly get back into the holster. So even with some guns, let's say like double action only guns, right? Like a revolver that has a long trigger pull. Yes, it is probably safe to carry a double action revolver in maybe, let's say, a fabric holster. But the problem is reholstering. Are you going to be able to reholster the gun as easy? And what I usually find is that people get into problems. Now, as far as the striker fired gun, let me loosen it. Again, I love this Core Essentials belt because I'm able to quickly tighten it up and loosen it with the press of a button. I've done other videos on this. Especially useful if I'm going to sit down in the car seat where I want to loosen the belt up, and as soon as I get up, basically I just tighten it up, and So look up my reviews on Core Essentials belt. I think it's a good choice, but I want to be able to loosen this up and then quickly get this off my body. When I go home at night, okay, I don't unload this gun, right, because it's dark. I can't see very well. I don't want to put the lights on because my kids are sleeping, my wife is sleeping, so the last thing I want to do is start fumbling around with unloading this gun in the dark. Okay, so the gun comes off my belt like this. This is how it goes into the safe. The next morning I take this off and I put this on the belt. Okay. The other thing is, if I'm going to, I just tighten up the belt really easy. The other important thing is, if you got to have a bathroom plan. How are you going to use the bathroom? I don't want the gun basically on the outside of my pants hitting the floor. What I want to be able to do is loosen up my belt, take this, take the gun with the holster off my belt and stick this in my pocket. Okay, and now I can drop my pants and use the bathroom. Okay, and then when I'm done, I can stand up. Take this off. By the way, this holster that you see here, this is from Nightfall's Custom. They make great holsters. I've done reviews on Nightfall's Custom. You should look that up. Just look up my channel name and Nightfall's Custom. You'll see it. It was custom made for this G43 with the suppressor height sights and the red dot. So anyway, I want a holster that I can stick in my pocket when I want to use the bathroom, and as soon as I'm done, take this out, put this on my belt. Okay, so again, the belt is part of the system here, right? So I need a belt that can retain this, that I can quickly tighten, right? Just like that. And then I can draw the gun, right? And when I draw the gun, I don't want the entire holster coming off my belt. Okay, I just want the, when I draw, I just want the gun coming out of the holster. I don't want the holster come, because I've seen that plenty of times with both cheap, improper holsters, and also with improper belts. People sometimes have the wrong belt, so that when they draw, the entire holster lifts up, and they're here, and basically the holster's still on the gun. So these are the things that you need to practice. You got to have confidence that when you draw, okay, the gun is going to come out of the holster, and then you can safely reholster. The technique for drawing, what I will usually do is I'll basically get my hand on my chest so I'm aware of where my hand is. I'll draw, okay, I'll rotate, I'll join, go to full extension. Basically, I'm pointing this finger at the target, just point straight out, take my shots, come back in, get my hand back on my body, or in this case, clear my garment, and then get the holster, get the gun back in the holster. That's you gotta practice. This is part of the system. You gotta be able to both draw the gun, reholster the gun, but also get the whole thing off your body when you need to. So, for example, if I need to go into a post office, right? There's a stupid law that says that you can't bring your gun into a post office even if you have a carry permit. Makes no sense, but it is what it is. What I want to do is I want to loosen up my belt real quick, take the entire holster and gun off, basically put this in my locked car. Okay, the last thing I want to do is fumble with trying to unload this gun in the parking lot inside of my car, because that's not something I normally do. Okay, if you try to do things that you don't normally do, that's when you're going to have an accident, because you're not practicing trying to unload a gun inside of your car. So don't do it. Right? Keep the gun loaded. Okay, just take the holster off and basically put this in your locked car, and then when you're done, you can come out and you can put this back on your belt. You're going to do that a lot more efficiently and a lot more safely than trying to unload the gun. You're almost guaranteed at some point you're going to have an accident. You may not have an accident the first million times, but I don't know, 1,000,001, you're going to have an accident. So avoid that problem. I generally only load and unload the gun when I'm at the gun range, or if I'm in a designated safe area of my house, like I say my basement, where I know I'm pointing the gun into a wall or something, that's got dirt behind it. That's the only time that I will fumble with loading and unloading the gun. Never in a parking lot, never, in a bathroom, restaurant, or anything like that. Keep the gun in the holster, leave it loaded. As long as it's in the holster, right? You guys can see how quickly I'm taking this on and off, right? As long as it's in the Kydex plastic holster, this gun is perfectly safe. That's where this needs to be. Now, one of the things I want to do is I want to talk to you guys about the safety features of this gun. The first one being the holster, right? The holster is the primary safety feature, right? Again, like I said, the holster serves the function of carrying the gun, retaining the gun, okay? And it protects the trigger guard so that you cannot accidentally fire the gun. I'm going to remove this. Let me put this here for a second. And what I am going to do now is I'm going to unload the gun. I'm going to take out the magazine, put that in my pocket. I'm going to take out the round that's in the chamber, check the gun, point in the safe direction, dry fire the gun, right? What I want to do now is I want to familiarize you guys with the safety features of the modern striker fired gun, again, so that you guys will feel comfortable carrying a striker fired gun loaded with a round in the chamber, because a lot of people are like, oh, you know, it doesn't have a safety on it, or I don't feel carrying, you know, safe carrying it with a round. If you understand the safety features of this gun, you will feel more comfortable carrying it the way it was designed to be carried, with a round in the chamber. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the trigger safety, right? So if you look at the trigger here, there's this little leaf here. Basically, if I push the trigger on the sides here, you'll notice that the trigger will not move back. I have to put my finger on that leaf in order for that trigger to move back, okay? Okay, so if I push down the sides here, that's not coming back. I have to put my whole finger on the trigger. So that's why the holster is so important, because it prevents you from putting your finger there and pulling that back, okay? Because unless that happens, the gun can't fire, okay? The second mechanism, safety mechanism that's built into the gun, aside from the trigger safety, is the fact that the trigger must move back, okay? So the trigger must move back, because what's happening is when you rack the slide, the gun is basically in a half-cocked position, okay? Let me put this away and let's look at the slide for a second so that we can understand. So when you press your trigger, right? When you press your trigger, you'll see how that sear moves back. Let me get behind the camera so you guys can see better. So you see how that sear is moving back? Get this in focus. There it goes. See how this part right here, that's the part that you're looking at, right there where my finger is. You see how that moves back? Okay, well, what happens is as you pull that back, what that is doing, it is coming back and down. Okay, so what that does is on the slide here, we take out the recoil spring and the barrel. Okay, so on the slide here, this is this is the entire firing pin on the inside. This is the firing pin lug. Okay, so what has to happen is that sear has to grab this, pull this back, and then drop so that it goes forward. Okay, so what's happening there is the sear is moving. This is your firing pin lug. The sear comes back. It moves it back, drops, and then allows this to go forward. So that sear grabs the firing pin lug, pulls this back, drops, and then this goes forward. So what I'm explaining to you guys here is that unless that sear, right, grabs this, pulls this back, and then lets go, right, the way I just did it, right, it has to grab this, pull this back, and then let go, the firing pin is not going to come out there, right? So the other thing is that if you notice, if I'm pulling this back and letting it go, the firing pin's not coming out through the hole because I haven't pressed the safety plunger. So only when the safety plunger is pressed here will it allow the firing pin to come through the hole, right? So you see that plunger right there? So see now I'm pushing forward, it's not coming out. Only when I push this forward is that coming through, right? So that has to be pushed in. So the thing that pushes that is this little fin over here, right? I call it the shark fin. When you press the trigger back, this comes back, this little fin here, right? It comes back, and that's what presses on the safety plunger to get this out of the way, right? So that shark fin comes back, presses on the safety plunger to get this out of the way so that the firing pin will go forward and come through the hole. Okay, so one more time. What needs to happen is first thing that has to happen is that little fin there has to be pressed, okay, because otherwise there's no way that trigger is going to move back. So only when your finger's on the trigger pushes that little fin does that come back. And if you notice, when I push that back, you see how that shark fin moves back? Shark fin moves back. When the shark fin moves back, okay, it comes up and it engages the safety plunger here. Only when this gets pushed forward does the firing pin come through the hole. Is the firing pin capable of going through the hole, okay? Only when so if I don't push that in, I can push on this all day over here. That's blocked, right? That is blocked. Unless that gets pushed in, that is completely blocked, okay? And then again, the firing pin, the firing pin block has to get out of the way. And then what has to happen is the sear, which again is this piece back here, right, has to come back, grab the firing pin lug, pull this back, and then come back and release it. So that's like a slingshot action, right? So you got to pull this back and then let it go. So if you don't pull that back and let it go, it's not going to work. So when you put the gun back together, so we put the barrel back in there. The recoil spring back there, okay. Put this. So this slack that you feel over here, right? That's basically the firing pin. I'm sorry, that's basically the sear grabbing that firing pin lug and pulling it back all the way. So that's completing the cocking action. Okay, so when you rack the gun, you put it in a half cock position, and then as you press the trigger, you complete the cocking action. So basically that trigger needs to come back to build up, to get into a position so that, and build up tension so that the firing pin will come forward with enough force to strike the primer on the back of the cartridge. But that firing pin is only going to come forward if the shark fin pushes up and gets the safety plunger out of the way. Okay, so that's why these striker fired guns are so safe to carry. There's at least three safety mechanisms built into the gun, and for that reason you don't need any additional safety mechanisms on the outside of the gun, like thumb safeties or backstrap safeties that you can possibly forget. Okay. Now, lastly, let's go over the loading procedures for this gun. Let me do this. I'm going to put this, because we know the gun's not loaded, I'm going to put this in the holster. I'm going to get this back on my belt. Okay. Right. Tighten this up. Right. And again, you want to test it. Make sure that when you draw it, that only the gun comes off the belt, not the holster. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gun out. I'm going to take the magazine, right? I'm going to put the magazine in. I'm going to chamber around, drop the magazine, because I know I got to round the chamber now, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that extra round. I'm going to top off my magazine. Now you notice that I put the gun in the holster because this is the safest place for the gun to be. So while I'm doing this, I'm not putting the gun on the counter, or on a table or something. I'm putting the gun in the holster. That's the safest place for the gun. And now after I top off my magazine, I'm going to put my magazine in, give it a tug to make sure it's in there. Maybe give it a little check over here, make sure I got around the chamber. Push this forward all the way, make sure it's forward all the way. And now I can put the gun back in the holster. And now the gun is safe to carry. Okay, so these are all the things that you have to consider with carrying a gun. If this is only a small fraction, that's why one of the things I tell people is, just because you buy a gun and you know how to shoot with the gun and hit the targets, there's lots of other things that you need to know. You gotta know the practical aspects of carrying a gun. Okay, so these are important things, like how you're going to use the bathroom, right? You've got to be able to loosen up your belt. You got to have the right belt, loosen it up, get the gun off your belt, get in your pants. Now you can drop your pants. When you're done, pull your pants up, get the gun back on the belt. Okay, quickly tighten up the belt. Okay, and now have confidence that when you draw the gun, it's going to come out of the holster, and you're not going to pull the whole holster, off of your belt. Okay. So one of the things I advise people is go find instructors in states, right? If you're in like one of these anti-gun states where you just got your carry rights, most of the instructors at these gun ranges, they might be really good at giving like target shooting instruction, but they probably have not been carrying guns for a very long time. Even if they're police officers, they're carrying guns under very different conditions. Okay, to some extent, here's the thing: if you look at a lot of the police stations around the country, if you go to the locker room, there's actually bullet holes in lots of the locker rooms from negligent discharge. Okay, police officers can get away with making mistakes like that. Civilians cannot, right? You have a negligent discharge, they're going to take away your carry permit. They might even try to prosecute you, especially if somebody is injured during that negligent discharge. So that's the reason why I tell you it's really important that the gun does not come out of the holster until you're ready to use the gun, okay? Gun stays in the holster You know, I've done other videos on why you shouldn't be using your gun to like issue warnings, right? And that, you know, because again, trying to use your gun to issue a warning to somebody, basically they're gonna charge you with like terroristic threats and stuff like that. So gun stays in the holster. You don't make any references to the gun until it's time to actually use the gun. Right now, gun is coming out of the holster to actually be used. That's just how the laws are set up, right? The laws, you don't have any protection in the law for issuing warnings, right? You do have protections for defending your life. So that's what we have to fall back on, right? We only have legal protections for defending our lives with the guns. There's nothing in the laws about issuing warnings to protect your life. So stay away from the warnings. Gun only comes out of holster to be used. Other important thing, now that we're kind of mentioning this legal stuff, make sure you have a prepaid legal service, a lawyer on call, because especially if you're in one of these anti-gun states, okay, if you anything gun related, and cops, they're gonna try and at the very least take your carry permit away, or worse, prosecute you. Right? So I use U.S. Lawshield. The reason why I use them is because they're cheap. It's $11 per month, okay, with the coupon code, and the coupon code is Pocono Shooting. All right, you gotta go through the website uslawshield.com. All right, or the app. If for any reason this promo code's not working at the website, you download the app. It's and just in the code field enter Pocono Shooting. That's gonna get you some discount. It's different from state to state. In some states you get the $20 sign up fee waived, right? So you don't have the $20 sign up fee. In other states you get like 2 free months. In some states, right, I think there's 10 states where you get both. They both waive the sign-up fee, and you get 2 extra months. In fact, I think there's in some states, not only do they waive the sign-up fee, and you also get the first month free, right? What that means is that it doesn't cost you anything up front. So you can use this time period to call these guys up or email them and ask questions like, you know, because here's the thing, especially if you're in an anti-gun state, the laws are going to go through some rapid changes. You need a lawyer that you can ask questions, right? Don't just go on the internet and try to get legal advice for the latest gun laws. Because, for example, I'm doing this video today. You might see this video 2 years from now, right? So, you know, even if I try and give you some legal advice, by the time you see this video, it might have changed. So that's why you need a prepaid legal service. There's lots of them out there. There's lots of them very good out there. Some of the other ones that I looked at were like $30 a month, $35 a month. These guys are $11 a month. So they're by far the cheapest that I've been able to find. Right, and then if you use the promo code, you get you get free months and you get sign-up fees waived and all the other stuff. Here's the thing, I live in a very low risk area, right? There's almost like zero chance I would really need to use my gun in self-defense. But the way I use these guys is I call them, I email them or call them up, and I ask them gun questions, right? Like, is it legal for me to carry this unserialized Polymer 80 that I built in my state? And I kind of knew the answer, but I wanted to get it from a lawyer in writing. The answer is yes, I can carry this in my state. Is it legal in your state? I don't know. You gotta ask these guys. Now, the other way I use them is if I'm traveling. For example, if I'm traveling to Florida, can I bring my gun down there and carry it over there? I know my state has reciprocity with Florida, but can I carry this gun specifically because it's unserialized? I don't know. I'd have to ask them. What states can I, if I'm driving down there, what states can I carry the gun in along the way? They'll give me an itinerary where they'll tell me that, okay, in these states you can carry the gun. In these other states over here, you should unload the gun and keep it unloaded in your trunk. And then they'll probably tell me, like, in these other states over here, don't bring the gun at all. Avoid these states altogether. Here's an alternate path so that you can get to your destination without going through those states. Okay, so really important to have a lawyer that you can ask these type of questions. Now, my regular lawyer charges like $250 an hour, right? The lawyer that I use for my regular business, I don't want to call that guy up because as soon as I call him up on the phone, he's already running the clock, okay? And his hourly rate is $250 an hour. So I use these guys, which are pretty cheap, and I ask these guys the question, right? So there's your promo code. I hope this information was useful for you guys. If you got any questions, drop it below in the comments. Even if you know all this stuff, perhaps you know other people that will benefit from this information. So please share this video, pass it around. We want to get this information out there, especially to the new concealed carriers that think that they're gonna, go buy a Glock and then go buy a cheap fabric holster from Walmart, right, and carry the gun that way. Okay, so they really need to know. I've actually had I've met up with new gun owners at the gun range where, like, I had women with loaded guns that had basically had just thrown it into the purse, right? You never want to do that, because you throw a loaded gun into the purse, there's all sorts of stuff in there, like lipstick, pen, that can basically activate the trigger guard, right? If you're gonna carry the gun in the purse, it has to have a separate compartment, with a built-in holster to carry the gun, right? But you never want to throw a loaded gun into a purse, because your pens, lipstick, all that stuff is gonna hit the trigger and it's gonna fire the gun. So I've actually seen this. So just because you know that you should be carrying the gun in a proper holster doesn't mean that your friends and family know. So try to repost this information, try to spread the word out there. Okay, thanks for watching. I will talk to you all soon.